What's going on, everyone? This is Cadman Cycling. Welcome in. Today's Zwift race brings us to Richmond, Virginia in the United States. This is part of the Herd Racing series. We have everyone included in this race, so all categories, A, B's, C's, and D's. And dare I say, this was actually my favorite course that I've done on Zwift yet. It's really a lot of fun. Overall, it's about 17.1 kilometers, just over 10 miles with 167 meters of elevation gain, which doesn't sound a lot, but it comes in a very punchy couple of climbs. So at the very start, we'll go downhill and then immediately hit two different climbs. One's the 23rd Street climb, and then one's the KOM reverse that are very steep sections. I think the KOM reverse hits a 22% grade at one point, which may be the steepest grade in Zwift, if I'm not wrong. So we get started at a downhill section, kind of an interesting start. We're half a kilometer in, already in the super tuck, trying to save energy as much as I can before we immediately jump into the first climb. So two punchy climbs, and then later on in the race, we'll have a little bit more of a gradual climb up Broad Street in Richmond. And then the second half of this race is all flat. So we get all of our elevation done at the start of the race. Really one way to take a big group. I think we started with 83 riders and just blow it to pieces immediately. So we finish the downhill section. We make a left turn, which I think that will officially start this 23rd Street climb, but really the elevation doesn't start until we hit this right-hand turn section. So I let the front group go. A lot of that is A's and B's. There's really no point in settling in right now or finding a group, because I know the second we hit this climb, everything's just gonna blow to pieces. So my plan is to go hard early, see where that puts me, and then see what we can do from there on the flat section. So I'm feeling good at the start. Obviously, the warm-up to this race is pretty important as we're hitting the 23rd Street climb here. It's important to get a good warm-up because here we are less than 2 kilometers in, already hitting these very punchy climbs, getting the heart rate up. So I think I jumped on the bike about 30 minutes before this race, made sure I got the heart rate up, got the legs into it, kind of expecting this to happen. I'd done some research on the course ahead of time. And this 23rd Street climb, just a little bit of a background. So Richmond is included in Zwift because it was part of the 2015 UCI World Championships. And although we're not doing the exact road race course from those UCI championships here, this 23rd Street climb is actually where Peter Sagan made an attack on this uphill section and eventually went on to win the race. So again, not doing the exact same layout of race here. I think there's a separate route within Zwift that does that exact 2015 UCI World Championships course, but kind of some interesting history as to why Richmond's included in Zwift. And honestly, I think this is my first time racing in Richmond. Really enjoyed it. So just finished the 23rd Street climb there. Again, the pack's kind of all over the place. I pushed it pretty hard up that first climb. Now on the downhill in a super tuck. Heart rate's at 180. And I do have a group of a few riders around me. So started with, like I said, 83 riders, and already kind of on this second climb, it's blown up. So now took that downhill, tried to put as many watts as I could in the bottom of that downhill, because immediately we hit this Richmond KOM reverse. Here's where the grade jumps up. I think I saw 18 there. Not sure if it got into the 20s. I thought at the time I was riding it did, but may have just missed it rewatching it there. Again, very short, very punchy, but it's necessary to have that speed. So I did try to build up the speed as much as I could on that downhill while I was in the super tuck and then going into the climb. If you kind of slow down at when that grade gets up to around 20%, you're barely moving. Again, in Zwift, you're not going to fall off your bike like you would in real life, but definitely the speed slow down. So I try to keep the speed up as much as I could. And right there, we've done almost half of the overall climbing of the race, just in the 3 kilometers. Again, the group's all over the place. I have one guy about a second ahead of me now, a few more riders behind. But now's the time to start to settle in. Heart rate's at 181. Still have most of this race ahead. We finished the first 2 punchy climbs. There'll be one more gradual climb, I believe it's called the Broad Street Climb. And then we'll hit a pretty flat section for the rest of the race. So here we are going back downhill. I'll take the opportunity to hopefully super tuck, but at least regain some energy here. Looks like I didn't quite have enough speed to super tuck as we're going around. This would be quite the technical downhill if it weren't for Zwift. As there I get into a super tuck for about a second, but it's kind of interesting. In Zwift, you don't have to worry about turning, so you can really get some speed going through these downhills that in real life would not be possible. So here we go back into the super tuck. I would have had used the drafting boost, probably not the best time to use it. I saw one guy in front of me, but jumped by him, and drafting boost didn't do me much good there. But we'll start to settle in, see if we can form a bit of a group here and start gaining some ground on everyone in front of us. So we went ahead, picked up the speed there for a little while. As this group, it was me and another rider kind of on our own off the front. This group of 3 came up behind, so up to the watts for a little bit to make sure we jumped on. Now the goal is, now that we have a bigger group, see if we can move faster, use each other's draft, and continue to gain ground on those ahead of us. As we start to hit the Broad Street climb, so elevation here up to 4 or 5%. It won't get much more than that. It might touch 6, and that's about it. This is more of a gradual climb, definitely not punchy like the first 2, but this group is starting to put out some higher watts, really pushing on this climb. My heart rate's getting a bit more elevated than it was before. We have an ATP rider, and then, let's see, 2 pink Tron bikes. ATP rider kind of starts falling off the back. I start doing the same thing, so 3 strong riders out in front really pushed it up that grade there. I'm still at 350, was for a second, now 250 watts, which well above my FTP, but something that I'm trying to jump back on this group. But again, not a sustainable effort for the rest of this race. And I think I realized that. So still at 240 watts, but I'm getting dropped here. And I still have the FTP rider just a little bit, or ATP rider, sorry, just a little bit behind me. So I'll let that group go. I'll kind of reconvene with this ATP rider. See if there's another group behind us that we can continue to work with. And with that being said, skipped forward. We're now over halfway through the race, still considered the lead-in, but over halfway through at 11.5 kilometers. So it's still me and this ATP rider with the pink Tron bike, and gained 2 more. So we'll continue pushing forward with this group. Settle in. My legs are feeling all right. Heart rate's not bad, and the riders just disappeared. This was kind of a interesting thing that happened because it wasn't a trainer dropout. My trainer is still working perfectly fine, but I can no longer see exactly where I am in the race, and I can't see any of the other riders. So I tried my best just to maintain that same effort that I was putting out. And here they pop back up. So I had been dropped a little bit. I had to up my power just to jump back on, but kind of interesting there that I lost everyone else in the race for a second. Luckily, I was close enough that I didn't have to put in too big of an effort. I was able to keep my power pretty constant when all of the other riders disappeared, as to not get dropped, but just something interesting that happened during the race. Didn't affect the outcome, but I hadn't really seen that before. So luckily no trainer dropout. I'm still with this group, as we'll speed it up a little bit as we get closer to the finish. All right, so slowing it back down, just 1 kilometer left. We did have one of those riders we were with started to put in an effort pretty far from the finish line and was able to stay away. He definitely had more power. I think he was actually a B rider when I checked back on Zwift power, so kind of just started putting in a constant hard effort a few kilometers away from the line, and this group wasn't able to stick with him, so becomes a group of 3 of us. As this race will end at the sprint banner. And I'm feeling all right. I think I've had enough time at this point to kind of regain a lot of the energy that I used in the climbs at the start. I got dropped from that front group, so haven't been pushing quite as hard. So I know I have, although my heart rate's kind of high, I know I have some energy to use to the sprint, so I'll kind of sit back, don't want to be on the front and jump from there. And since it's not a big group, it'll be more of a reaction. If we get down to 200 meters, I'll wait. But I actually make the move there, so no one else jumped. I decided to just put in the all-out effort, kind of force them to jump on my wheel if they had it. And luckily, they didn't put in much of a kick, so I came home in the front of that group. But like I said, guys, this was really one of my favorite races. I enjoyed those short, punchy climbs at the start. Really, like I said, blew the group to pieces, and then it's kind of like, okay, you still got the rest of the race left. Let's see what you can do. Had a lot of fun. I would definitely race here again. I haven't seen it much on Zwift, but if I ever see a Richmond race, I'll definitely join. So guys, thanks for sticking in. Really appreciate you being here. If you like these videos, please go ahead and subscribe. I try to put these out 2 to 3 times a week. So until next time, this is Cadman Cycling, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.